Hey guys, I'm Danny, your friendly neighborhood colorist, and Blackmagic Design has just released DaVinci Resolve version 19 for public beta. So if you want to test out this public beta for version 19, you can go to Blackmagic Design's support page under DaVinci Resolve software, or you can find the link down below in the description. And now let's get into the updates. So the first thing that we got is a new ColorSlice 6-factor grading palette. You can find the ColorSlice palette in your middle palettes over here with this icon. So this ColorSlice palette adds a new tool, which is density and saturation along with saturation depth, which usually comes in the form of DCTLs, which is coded by users. They are custom tools, which are called DCTLs. So now it's built into DaVinci Resolve, which is a very great tool if you want to emulate film. And in this ColorSlice palette, we also have technically 7 palettes, but they say 6. So the additional palette here is skin, which is not exactly a color because there are a lot of different tonal ranges for skin, but they included this skin color as well. And you can toggle to view where the vector is selecting with these highlight modes. So we have red, skin, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and magenta, which are colors from the color wheel. You can also adjust where the individual vectors are selecting by using this center tool, and you can adjust the hue of the particular vector and also the density or the saturation of that particular vector. So I'm probably going to make a separate video to dive deeper into this ColorSlice tool to see whether how practical it is for a day-to-day use. And the next thing that we got is a new node stack feature to manage complex grading workflows. So you can find the node stack feature in your settings down here. In the general options and color page, you can go down here to node stack layers and you can increase the layers. So node stack layers are more or less like groups. So if you're more familiar with grouping your clips for grading, this is technically the same thing, just that it breaks down each individual process like we usually do with our node tree. To find out more about node trees, you can watch this video. So we can also rename the layers individually, like let's say this is primaries or preservation, then we have our primaries, our secondaries, and then lastly is our like creative look or something like that. So you can do that with a node stack, and if I click on save, you see that it's more or less similar to grouping your clips if you're familiar with that. So I'm not sure if you're someone who groups your clips while grading, but I can see this very useful for two cases. One is that you're dealing with a lot of long form projects like feature film, TV series, and stuff like that. And the second one is a little bit more unconventional, which is if your screen size is too small and you can't fit the whole node tree, because that happens sometimes where I'm moving from a larger screen to my MacBook Pro, which is 14-inch. I can see that the node tree is expanding out of control. So in that case, I feel that the node stack will actually helps to organize the clips in that way, which has less nodes in each particular stack. Moving on to the next feature, which is a new normalized channels in the RGB mixer. So I'm not one to use the RGB mixer as much also, but if you like using the RGB mixer, I guess you can find your RGB mixer over here. And if you move the individual levels, you will see that it affects the whole image like this, which is not quite usable, to be honest. So if I turn on the normalize, which is this icon over here, it will normalize everything and just switch around the hues without making a huge adjustment to each layer. So if I go to the green output, you can see that maybe you can do like this, or if I go to the blue output and increase the red, you can move things around, very balanced, so it won't like interrupt whatever you're doing. But I'm not one to use RGB mixer as much, so I don't think that this update will be as useful to me. But this next update is particularly very useful to me, which is you can open compound nodes with double clicking. So let's say I have one node here. I'm going to create a new node and I'm going to select them both and create a compound node. So before this, we just have to go to the clip, right click and show compound node. That's how we open a compound node. But right now you can just double click on the node and it opens up itself. But to get out of this compound node is still the same old technique of going down to your wider node here and double clicking. Yep. And other than that, there is also a node cleanup feature which you can apply to multiple nodes at once. So I assume that before this, if you want to clean up our node tree, you can just right click and clean up node graph. So you have to do this for each individual clips, which might be troublesome for some. So right now, if you see my other clips, I have the nodes in random places. So if I select them all and right click in my node palette, and clean up selected node graph, you can see that all of them are cleaned up like this. And another new thing that has come to version 19 is ultra noise reduction, which is pretty interesting to be honest. So I have a clip here. And ultra noise reduction is in your usual motion effects palette where you can find your temporal and spatial noise reduction. So ultra noise reduction is under your spatial noise reduction, and you have better, enhanced, and ultra. So the new thing about ultra noise reduction is that you can analyze the clip to see how much noise that you want to reduce. So if I click on analyze, it will pop up this square over here, which will show you where they are getting the noise information from. And you can also move this square around and also resize the square to improve on the ability to analyze for noise. And if I move this square around, you will notice that the luma and chroma value will automatically detect it and analyze it and reduce noise accordingly. So I'm going to talk more about this in a video comparing ultra noise reduction to neat video, and the results are pretty surprising to be honest. So do check out that video when it's out. So not to forget, we also have a new tool which is a film look creator, and we can go up to our effects palette over here and search for the film look. So it's under Resolve FX Film Emulation. You have your film look creator and you can drag it in. So we have a few settings that we can adjust over here. If you have presets, which is default 35 or 65, cinematic will add this black bars for you, the letterbox, and also bleach bypass, nostalgic will add this frame for you, so you don't have to do your own overlays. And let's just go with a default 35 mm. You can choose to blend the color and blend the effects with this slider over here. So you can also do color space overrides to input your particular color space without having to use a LUT or a CSC color space transform. And in the color settings, you can adjust for exposure, contrast, highlights, all of that. And one very interesting thing is also this split tone function, which you can use to add blues in the shadows and warm in the highlight. So I'll touch more about this with a new split tone video. So I get that a lot of you like my previous split tone video, so do check this out. And within this effect, we also have vignette, the usual halation, bloom, grain, and we also have some competing features with the Hanser. So I'm going to do a test to figure which one looks better and which one is right for you in the future video. So we have flicker, gate weave, and also film gate, which is pretty interesting. So you can adjust what kind of frame that you want to picture your film emulation in. And lastly, of course, we have a global blend to to see how much of the intensity of this effect we want. So these are all the features in your film look creator, and it seems like a pretty useful tool, especially this split tone, which I can imagine it to be used in various ways that is not to emulate film. So we can use this tool in our day-to-day grading to add more creative adjustment. So you can use this as a creative adjustment instead of emulating film. So the tools are here, but we can use them to our particular needs. And the next thing that comes with this update is support for FujiFilm Log and also Log 2 for color managed workflow. So an emphasis on color managed workflow. So you don't get to find the Fujifilm Log and Log 2 profiles in your color space transform. So you can see that it's still not here under F, which is not here. It only supports it if you're doing color management on the project or the timeline basis. So if I go down to my settings, color management, and go to DaVinci Resolve Color Manage, and let's do a custom. I can only find it here in the input color space, Fujifilm F-Log. Let's see over here, F-Log and F-Log 2. So this pretty upsetting actually, because I like to do my color management in the node level and not the timeline or the project level. But I'm going to assume that this is a temporary thing. I think it's going to be available in the CST sooner or later. And lastly, let's talk about the new micro panel. So it looks pretty awesome, and it's a size of keyboard which is more or less the size of a micro panel right now. So I have one here right in front of me, but it has a lot of new buttons. And it has a new shift tool, which is very useful for adjusting power windows and also moving your cursor around, which I expect it to do. And the shift tool adds a new layer to what the capabilities of a micro panel can do, because right now all the buttons can only react in one way, which is what is labeled. If it's a previous node button, it only can do previous node. If it's a disable button, it only can do disable. But with the new shift tool, each button can also have a second function added to it, which is very useful. And it also has additional keys like adding nodes, serial, and probably if you press shift, you can add parallel and layer nodes also. So I'm quite in a dilemma whether to get the new micro panel or get the mini panel, which I was planning to get actually. So this leaves me with much more option than I anticipated from the beginning. Hopefully they also launch a new mini panel, which adds on to its functionality as well. That's my greatest hope. Hopefully it comes with version 20, but I think I will still get the new micro panel when it's available in May. So that's something to look forward to. And from what I heard, the new micro panel doesn't come with a DaVinci Resolve license. So it's much cheaper, which is around 500 USD or 2000 plus ringgit. So that's a pretty good deal, to be honest. So that's a brief overview for everything in the DaVinci Resolve 19 public beta version in the color page, but I'm working on a deeper dive into the new tools like the ColorSlice, the ultra noise reduction, and also the film look creator tool. So look forward for videos on that. And I just want to say that it has now been a better time to start using or switch over to DaVinci Resolve for the color page features. And if you're looking for a course to learn color grading from me, I just launched my visionary color grading for DaVinci Resolve, so you can check that out. So that's it for this video. See you guys in the next one. Bye bye.